every single human is creative. I think we're born creative, and I think it's battered out of us. And that's a damn shame. And there are a million reasons for that, and it's nobody's fault, really. But, you know, I think always about like cave painting from 30,000 years ago. People have always wanted to be like, look, I was here, you know, this is that. It's inherent. We can think creatively all the time. Anyone can. We can make things. You can give someone just one little, why don't you try that? And then they can just go off and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that happen a million times. So it's part of us. It's who we are as human beings. I truly think that. I have been a personal beneficiary of how sitting down and making something can help you in terms of literally just working with your hands, losing yourself and getting absorbed in something and finding that flow state. And that flow state does down-regulate your body, brings you out of a place of stress into a place of sort of being soothed and calm. I'm Victoria Clarke. I'm a counsellor, creative counsellor. I'm an artist. I would say sort of abstract expressionist-ish. I'd say my stuff is quite dreamy. Common theme seems to be about things that are like unseen and underneath and kind of coming through, and like, is there something there or isn't there, you know? And my first kind of paintings that were on the way towards this stuff, I loved being in stormy, foggy, cloudy sea kind of environments. I wanted to kind of paint how I felt in that. It made me feel like whipped up and like dramatic, but also kind of contained. I think that's probably what I've been trying to evoke ever since then. There's this phrase in art therapy, like everything is something. You can see or pull out anything from what you notice in what you're doing or an artwork that you're interacting with. Looking at art can just be soothing and put you into that flow state. It can be stimulating. It can make you think of 10 different things, but it can also give you something, you know, and you can spot like a blob, like literally anything, and that could be something. And that could tap into something unconscious. And somewhere you might never know, but somehow that has taken you somewhere else and helped you reach a place of insight. And it can all be completely unconscious and you could never know, but that will have happened. And you know, you can put your pain or your thoughts or your struggles into your work. You can, you know, like children, like sort of that real angry Scrabble you can do. If you're feeling frazzled and if you're feeling lost, you can put that into your work. And there is something about the mind-body connection as well, of like using your hands. The same with like writing by hand rather than typing. It taps into things more deeply, I think. So yeah, I think there's 100 different ways art is completely interlinked with well-being. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So Art Club Devon is my way of finding a way of being of service in the community, bringing all my skills together. It's monthly therapeutic art classes. They're 2 hours long. I do one class called Watercolour Wellbeing, and that is where we aren't coming together to paint a pretty picture in watercolour. We're coming together to watch how watercolour works and how we can manipulate it and how it interacts with different stimulus, what we're drawn to, like what colours, what mark making, what effect you can have on a piece of paper. There are various techniques where you can kind of tap into therapeutic ideas, like, for example, if you work with your non-dominant hand, that can help you be looser. It's your non-dominant hand, so you've got very little control. You let go of hoping it's going to be good. So that gives you more freedom internally to just do it. So it's about kind of play and down-regulating your body, getting absorbed and focused into something for a couple of hours. It's kind of meditative, I guess. It's like a meditative art class in a way. And we do like a grounding or a meditation at the start. It's really, really gorgeous. And then I do a collage class. I say it's therapeutic to some people because I know that it will appeal to them in that sense. But also it is just fun, and it is just a collage class at the end of the day. You know, it's not therapy. It's a way that I know what's going to get people thinking and checking in with themselves. I used to do an art class on Zoom with a charity part-time. You know, I used to get piped into old people's homes, and I'd be put on the telly in the living room and I'd chat and we'd paint together. It was so gorgeous. And I loved it so much. All across the country, I'd get piped into people's living rooms. The charity lost their funding, so I couldn't do it anymore. But that pushed me to bring Art Club into real life. I love it so much. And it's so gorgeous to be in the room and see everyone's energy go like that and change. And everyone gets really restful and quite trustful as well. And it's just gorgeous. I always wanted to be an art therapist. For years and years and years, wanted to be an art therapist, and there was just various blocks that the universe was not going to let that happen. So then I was seeing a therapist, and she was like, "Well, but you could sort of make a version of it." She basically made it clear that I could train as a therapist, and then kind of do lots of various different little courses to kind of create my own art therapy-ish training. But what I can call myself is a creative counsellor. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted whatever job I have to be worthy. Worthwhile, meaningful. I've always had struggles, mental health struggles, all sorts of things, and have benefited so much from art in 10 different ways and from therapy. And I knew that I could bring all of my different skills together and put that into a bundle and give it to people. The training has influenced my work. When you train to be a therapist, it's like you're doing a self-development course. Honestly, I wish everyone could do it because it's incredible. It's like you're giving yourself therapy, but you're also giving yourself this knowledge about how you've come to be who you are. You have to learn this stuff and apply it to yourself before you can go and do the work with other people. By doing that inner work for years, and it's intense and horrible sometimes, but also incredible and brilliant and beautiful. And you're doing it in a group as well, so that's quite revealing and challenging, but also beautiful. It's made me forgive myself, be far more compassionate, have much more inner freedom. When I've been working on art before I was training, I think I was coming from a place of trying to prove myself to whoever, external validation. And then through the training, I've come to a place of I need an outlet. It's pouring out of me. Don't overthink it. Just let it be. This mad stuff. And this is what I mean when I talk about like pouring, you know, and stuff like that. And okay, so I guess this counts as a sketch, but like mark making with sticks and stuff, and not being attached to the process. That was a self-portrait with a stick on the ground and some grid work. So yeah, maybe that's my version of sketching. Went to this art workshop in St Ives, and she got us to put a huge sheet of paper on the floor and grid it off with masking tape. And then we had a mixture of yellow ochre acrylic paint mixed with water and sand, really, really watery. And we also had ink, and then we were just pouring it, splattering it all over this gridded paper, letting it dry, cutting it up, and then going, what does that want to be? Like, could it go that way? Could it go that way? So did that, and then I did, on that course, make a couple of things, which I'll show you. Those two were like the final products from that work. There was a couple of other paintings as well, but I've sold them. I think, yeah, I've sold them. And then left all of those pieces alone for a couple of years, came back to them 18 months ago, and that's how these arrived. These started from those grid works. These are parts of that grid work. And so that's when I started going over these with oil sticks, which are what all of these bluey green ones are made with in the end. It's oil sticks. You know Turner, the painter, Turner? For as long as I can remember, I've always loved his like unfinished skies and seas where they're on the way to something, but they haven't got detail in them yet. I always really loved that. Yeah, skies, seas, clouds that are imprecise. I think it's something about what's possible in there and what you can see in it and what you can draw from it. Rothko as well, like Turner and Rothko both for me have got that quality of what's in there. Do you want me to see it? What do I see? And it can give me something and feed me and sort of soothe me or nurture me or surprise me a million times over. I remember it was my wedding anniversary, like 10-ish years ago. I used to live in the Netherlands and we went to the coast for our wedding anniversary in December. It was night and we went out for a beach walk and it was so blustery and it was so dark. And I just loved everything about it. It was elemental, dramatic, like whooped me up kind of thing. And I couldn't really see. And I just loved that. And that feeling is like what I get from the Turner and the Roscoe works. And that's what I wanted to try and recreate. But I think that was a long time ago. And since then, it's evolved to unconscious processes. You learn all about that when you're training to be a therapist. And Jung had this theory about a colour spectrum of consciousness, which, it's a theory, but I liked it. I enjoyed what he had to say. Accidentally, my work has started kind of working along those colours of consciousness, which sounds crazy, I realise, but I think that there was work that I was making a couple of years ago, and it was based around the red in the cliffs and the sand around here. And I wanted to sort of behold it and absorb it and go into it and like kind of become one with it and like grapple with it. And I was literally making paint like with it, like grinding it up and stuff and working it in with my hands into the canvases. That came to be kind of the red end of this consciousness spectrum, I think. Then all of this bluey stuff that you see around now, I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing them. But now I think probably they are also about what's going on underneath the surface. What can you notice and grapple with? What can't you? What do you know? There's something when you've got stuff going on, when you've got thoughts and feelings, desires, you know about them up here, but what about underneath? What flashes of insight do you get that kind of come and then recede? And what pulls you under in terms of sorrow or faith or hope? What's looming and what is hanging around? I always used to be like, I'm going to paint this thing, it's going to look like this. I've got this idea in my head and it's going to be that. And then if it wasn't that, then I'd be really annoyed and it was rubbish and I'd chuck it out and I'd be disappointed and really upset. But that's perfectionism and that's control. And I don't know how useful that is as an artist. Now I kind of embrace what before I would have seen as like accidents and something that was potentially going to ruin my plan. Now, I'm messy. And I'm clumsy and I'm big. I'm 6'1", like I get places, like I fill a space. Having things be picture perfect doesn't really make sense to me anymore. Now I just start and I see what happens and they evolve and, maybe I'll brush it with my elbow or I'll get a hair in it or I'll drop it. All sorts of things will go wrong. Yeah, it's intuitive now and it feels like I'm not in control of it anymore. It feels like it's something that's like I'm a vessel and it's coming through me. I'm the tool. When I always drew, always, like pages and pages and pages. I used to create my own like magazines and stuff, draw my own features, and stuff like that, which was cute. When I was in secondary school, I was about 12, 13 years old, really sad, really troubled. And in our art class at school, we were making out of clay these green men. It's like a folk character, the green man, and he's got, he's made of like acorns and leaves and he comes out in the spring at festivals and stuff like that. I don't know how, I can't remember exactly, but I started migrating to the art room during lunch breaks to escape it all, basically. I know that the teacher knew I was in there and I don't know how much she encouraged me, but she made it clear that I was allowed to be in there and usually you weren't allowed, to be out of the playground. And so I just remember that I started going in there all the time and working on my green man all the time and got so absorbed into it and loved it so much and loved making the acorns and things like that. Obviously, because I spent so much time on it, when it came to putting the projects in the kiln, mine was amazing. It was really good. And I was like, oh my God. And you could really see the quality difference, you know. And everyone was like, how's she done that? Like, they didn't understand because they didn't know that that's what would be going on. And then we were playing around with glazes and I got really into learning about that. And I was just like, this is amazing. This is like, it was so great. And I loved it so much. And everyone else was like, you're really good at that, actually. And so that's when I was like, ding, like there's something in here. Yeah. A bust making workshop at the Exeter Phoenix and learned how to make a bust. I was quite happy with it. And then brought it home and dropped it. Which is why she's facing that way, because she's quite... That's watercolour, the seals and everything. And they are intended to be illustrations for a book I want to make. For Devon, Flora and Fauna and Folklore. So they're a different goal, I guess. But then no, this is all oil sticks, and I just use the primary colours and then work it in with my hands, which I love. I started thinking so when I was building up for Devon Open Studios this year, I always have a bit of a crisis of like, why am I doing this? This is so much work and it's not going to be worth it. And being finished and being tidy, and it just does my head in. And then I do it and I'm really happy. And it's like, this is great, I'm going to do it next year. So then I was thinking, I've got all this work piling up and nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to go anywhere. And it's all just filling up my house. I should burn it. And then I was like, actually, maybe I should have an annual buy it or burn it ceremony, where, because really, truly, I think that would help. But it couldn't be with recent work, because I still love all of this work and I'm attached to it. But older work from a couple of years ago, I'm like, I want to keep the frames because they were expensive, but the paintings, I'm just like, yeah, I don't really care. I think that would help. It would be releasing, I think. If you can, don't try to be good. If you're able to, play as much as possible. Work with your non-dominant hand, because it will loosen you up and it will make you understand that it's okay not to be in control. I'm not saying don't create perfect pieces of what's in your head, because I still do that and there's still something in that. But don't be, I'm saying this, I would never have been able to do any of this. So it is take it with a pinch of salt, but don't be invested in the final product. Don't be invested in it being perfect. As much as possible, play and do it for you. Don't do it for what you think someone else wants to see. You have to serve yourself. That's where you're going to get the most satisfaction. And if you feel blocked, just start anyway. Make a mess. Put a tool in your hand and just do something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. And do it on crappy paper, do it on printer paper, do it on an old sketchbook, do it, on a newspaper. Just make some marks, because it's self-generating, if you do it, it will happen. It will carry on, something will happen. And it might not create something today, but it might generate an idea for a future work. If you've got the space, don't throw stuff away, because I've got things that I played with, made years ago, and then was like, I don't know what that is. Don't like it either. And then I've ended up using bits like that in paintings, which have started a whole thing years later. So if you can, keep stuff. Yeah, I think that's my advice.